Good morning, everybody. We'll call the commission to order. First items are the consent agenda items, the secretary's report and the treasurer's report. If there are no adjustments to either one of those, I'd ask for one motion to approve both. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
And second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is a consideration of the 2020 budget. Mike?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, commissioners and board members. The Executive and Budget Committee met on November 6th, and attached to the memorandum is the 2020 budget. We made a presentation on September 19th, and then, like I said, we had a follow-up meeting. Today, we are just basically seeking final approval of the budget. It actually is even slightly less than the one we presented in September, as we ended up moving, I was able to successfully negotiate our music license contract and saved several thousand there. So we actually took that out of the 2020 budget. So we are at a budget decrease entirely across the board. So we're just seeking approval of the commission today.
Questions? Discussion? Anybody?
I move approval of the budget with your permission.
Motion's been made to approve 2020 budget. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Investment report. Mike, Paul?
Yes, I want to introduce Paul Hennon from Financial Consulting Services out of Maple Grove. Paul has got some good news to report today. I know he's been very excited. He got here extra early just to make this report, because it's really good news. So take it away, Paul.
It is good news. As outlined in this report, we took took measures to structure this laddered bond portfolio. So I took quite a bit of cash last year at this time and structured it into treasuries and CDs, and we went out 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. And the plan was to, as they come due, we would roll that over to the next 5 years. So we would have more of a rolling portfolio. And I'd like to refer you to, well, actually, let's get into the numbers. The account is worth $2,144,128. The portfolio is up $89,262 for the first 3 quarters of the year. And its estimated annual income on the portfolio is $65,000, which is about it's a 3% lock-in. So that's what we locked in, a good portion of it, not all of it, but I would say about 75% of it is in that, about 1.2 million. And so that's what the game plan is. So, but I'd like to refer you to the last page. You don't have to go there, but the last page of this report, it shows the Treasury yield curve. If you look on the last page and you look at what 1 year difference can do, the Treasury yield curve was 3% last October. Now it's that same 5-year Treasury is now yielding 1.4%. So there's been a dramatic drop in rates. And I guess in hindsight, we were lucky, but I took advantage of a 3% across the board that we were getting, and I locked that in. So we eliminated what's called interest rate risk and also duration risk. Now for the most part, we still have what I would call a minor risk, which is called reinvestment risk. Because rates have dropped down, now when those others mature, then we would roll that over into a lower yield. But rates can change, and 1 year can make a big difference. So I think I want to stay with this plan, and it's stable, and we got it where I want it right now, and we can count on about a 3% yield on the portfolio. Interest rates is really the price of what it costs to borrow money. And sometimes, like in Europe, they have negative interest rates. And it's kind of tough to get your head around. But what that does is that over in Europe, they have still much lower rates than what we do. And money has been flowing in to our country, and that's why the rates have gone down, because it's basically they can get, it's the supply of money. So I think I want to stay where I'm at and continue with this bond laddered portfolio. And I went on a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, and 5-year. So we're already done with 1 year, but we have 1 more year of guaranteed locked-in 3%. So that's pretty stable. I'm happy with it. Also, I wanted to address the returns that you're seeing are net of fees. Our fees are 0.5% on the portfolio. But those are, the returns are net of fees. And I don't have anything else to comment on, unless there's some questions on the portfolio, the way it's structured. Any questions at all? Mr. No?
Any members have any questions? Jim?
You said the investments are reported as net of fees. What are the fees for the?
0.5%.
Yeah, but translate that then into dollars for me. I don't have a calculator.
Well, on a $2 million portfolio, that would be about 10,000.
Thank you.
And that's 0.5%. And really, that's in the ballpark of bond funds, 0.5%. Usually stock funds are probably 1 to 1.25%. But because this is really a passive, pretty much investment of bond funds, we're keeping the fees down to 0.5%.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Paul, thanks for your due diligence.
Yeah, thank you.
The results prove
Okay.
that you had more than hindsight.
Well, and another thing, if there's any kind of comments that you, as far as like style management, I'm, maybe talk to Mike or, bring it up. But I keep it in close quarters. Every quarter we have a report, and we have an annual review and quarterly review, and so I don't have any other comments, but thank you for letting me manage the portfolio. I really appreciate it.
Paul.
I'd like to have a motion to accept the investment report.
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
And second. All of them in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Legal update. Mike?
Well, good
Mike
morning,
B.
everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, members. I have 2 items to comment on and give you updates on today. At your September meeting, you authorized participation in the appeal of the cable franchising order issued by the FCC. That appeal was filed in the DC Circuit Court of Appeals in October. We're part of a large municipal coalition of cities that have filed that appeal. That appeal was then transferred to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And there's been a couple of other appeals that have happened on that same order. One was in the Third Circuit. There was another one in the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. All of those have been transferred now to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And then earlier this week, a motion to intervene by some Florida cities was filed. That was also in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. There was a motion to stay before the FCC that was filed, that we participated in the drafting of to the FCC. And the FCC denied that motion to stay, and that order is in your packet. The order, though, was troubling to the NCTA, that's the Cable Industry Association, troubling enough where they petitioned the FCC for clarification, and that was done, I think, at the end of last week. And now the FCC, I believe this week or the end of last week, put out a comment period to comment on that petition for clarification. So comments will be due sometime in early December. And again, we're working with the coalition to see what the best way to respond to that is. There still is pending a motion to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to transfer the case to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and that motion is pending. The briefing in whatever court this ends up being in, Ninth Circuit or Sixth Circuit, will be taking place in 2020. We also expect that there'll be a motion to stay before the Court of Appeals, and I would expect that motion to be filed, probably within the next 5 to 10 days. I think that's it for that particular matter. Then the second item is the Comcast franchise fee review, and I think we mentioned that we received a final report at the September meeting, that we had a final report that was submitted by Ashbond Skulko, and that report was circulated to the executive committee, as I understand it. And what we ended up doing after we received that is we asked Comcast to either pay the franchise fee underpayment that was found in the report, or to submit a detailed explanation in writing as to why they didn't agree with the report. Comcast chose to submit a writing why they disagreed with the report, although they did agree that they did have an underpayment, but it was significantly less than the amount found by Ashbond Skulko, the financial consultants for the Cable Commission. The process that we're going to follow now is we've invited Ashbond Skulko and Comcast to have a video conference and conference call with all the executive directors that are of the group that's participating in this franchise fee review of Comcast, so that all of the executive directors can ask questions. I can ask questions as well. I'll participate, and from both sides, and so we can get a better understanding of where the differences lie. And then I think what we'll do with this Cable Commission is we'll then brief the executive committee and come up with a recommendation, probably from the executive committee to the full body, and that would take place in the first quarter of 2020. And with that, that's my report, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mike, question, the 63,000 that they say versus the 400,000 plus that we say, it's totally a joke. Are we in for a long, long process with them? Because obviously they've got the staying power.
Well, I think.
And I'm not saying we capitulate and say, okay, we'll take the 63 grand, because that's just a travesty.
Right, Mr. Chair and members. And that's part of the reason why we're having these conversations now with Comcast and ANS to find out kind of where the differences lie, and where, as staff, we want to make recommendations to the commission. So, I think we'll do that through the executive committee, and have the executive committee give us guidance on where the commission wants to go. There is a process to follow if there remains a difference between you know, where the commission decides to be and where Comcast ends up being. And, you know, then we'll have to decide if that's a process that we want to follow moving forward. But the process, you know, for those of you that have been here for a while, probably know the process pretty well, but for those of you who are newer to the commission, there's a franchise violation process that we would go through. It would give Comcast notice of what cable franchise violation we saw, which would be a franchise fee underpayment violation. And there'd be an opportunity to have a hearing at some point with Comcast. So, but that's down the road. I think right now we're in listening mode, and we want to hear what both sides have to say, and we'll make our recommendations after that.
Mike, back to the FCC ruling. You said that the FCC response to the motion for stay was troubling. Could you elaborate on what you mean by troubling?
Well, it was troubling to the NCTA, which is the Cable Industry Association, and there was some language. There was some language in the order that they felt was inconsistent with the original cable franchising, the third report in order, the cable franchising order that we're appealing.
Mike, with the, process to get the fees that we're due, would that also include attorney's fees and other costs associated with the process?
Mr. Chair and members, yes, there would be, yes, for sure, there would be additional expense there, which we will review with the executive committee, and we'll review with you, based on what we, decide to recommend.
Okay.
Yes.
Bill?
So I didn't understand that. So would we be able to, if we win, get a portion of our costs and attorney's fees back again, or is that not in the franchise agreement, that the winning party gets their
Yeah.
fees?
Mr. Chair and members, I'll need to review your cable franchise a little bit closer on that one.
And then another question, the order denying motion for stay says we deny the motion. So who was it that denied, and was it there a panel, and was there a split vote, or what happened with that order denying the
Yeah,
stay?
Mr. Chair and members, that's a kind of an interesting question, at least to me, because the full FCC commission decided the third report in order, which we're appealing. The motion to stay was decided by Media Bureau staff and not the FCC
Well, who's Media
commissioners.
Bureau staff? Is Media Bureau staff of the FCC?
Of the FCC.
Okay.
Yes.
And then
And so this
they-
is this was a motion to the FCC for a stay, and under the appellate rules of the Federal Court of Appeals, you have to make a motion before the agency, before the Court of Appeals will decide a motion to stay. So that's why the motion was brought to the FCC
So
first.
when it says "we," was there like a 3-2 vote of the staff also, or was it unanimous, or what was?
Yeah, there wasn't Mr. Chair and members, there wasn't a vote. It was just issued by the FCC, by Media Bureau.
Okay, so we don't, it says by the chief Media Bureau at the top. So
Yeah.
so they have a staff committee that looks at this, and then one guy or one woman issues the order, or what
Right,
happens?
yeah, it did not go to the full, so we don't have a 3-2 vote or anything like that.
But we don't know what the vote
It
was.
it wasn't addressed at the full commission level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mike? All right, thanks, Mike.
Yep, thank you.
Mike J.,
Yeah,
Communications.
just want to point out the communications packet to you. Speaking of Comcast, I included their full third quarter report, and further on within the communications packet, there's an excellent article from Business News. It looks like a standard newspaper story here, and it's pretty enlightening on the entire the third quarter report from Comcast. Their net profit rose 11% in the third quarter, and mainly driven by broadband customer gains that helped the company notch a record number of customer additions. But this is customer additions for internet, as I've been talking about, not traditional cable services. In fact, the company reported a profit, a total of $3.2 billion, or 70 cents a share, up from $2.89 billion, or 62 cents a share, a year earlier.
No wonder they can only give us 63 grand. Tough times.
Comcast added, so this is where the whole issue lies. I mean, this article is just perfect, and that's why I wanted to include it in your packet. It says Comcast added 379,000 high-speed internet customers during the period, driving a 9.3% increase in the broadband revenue. But for Comcast, this is the 10th consecutive quarter of traditional pay TV subscriber losses. And that's where we get literally all of our funding, for the most part, is traditional cable TV revenue for people who subscribe to packages of cable TV. But none of that revenue included any telephony, telephone service, or internet service. And so they gained 379,000 high-speed internet customers, but lost 238,000 cable customers, traditional cable TV customers. So that, in a nutshell, kind of explains the situation we have going here, and you know, in terms of revenue coming into the organization, and that's why, you know, we're predicting there would be a tipping point, and it happened in 2018. And that's why a year and a half ago we said we got to strategically plan going forward how to deal with this, and that's what we're actually in the process of doing, which I'll explain a little bit in a staff update. But I definitely wanted to point that out. If you get a chance to read anything within that communications packet, that'll probably be the quickest read in terms of things. And I just included other Comcast memorandums that I received from Government Affairs, and then finally. Hennepin County every now and then just wants to double check that we're a tax exempt, so we don't have to pay property taxes on this building, so we had to fill out some paperwork, and this letter just shows that we're officially can continue with our tax exempt status, where we do not have to pay property tax for being on this property here in Brooklyn Park. That's it for communications.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Service recognition, commission and board members, we have several.
Yes.
That have served us faithfully.
Yes. Two, unfortunately, Zipporah Masese was unable to attend. She did send me an email, and she's going to be going off the board, but she did want to say, she says, please let the board know that it was a pleasure working with them as a volunteer board member. I wish CCX Media all the best. I wish you all the best, Mike, in your work, and all the other staff members too. Let us continue to be the light wherever we serve, for that is what life is all about. And that's from Zipporah, and we want to wish her well. She was a very engaged board member and volunteer, and we thank her for her service. And we already gave her her plaque, because she said she wouldn't be able to make this meeting. So we want to thank Zipporah, and we'll be looking to fill her position and some other open positions within the board and the commission within upcoming months. So we want to thank Zipporah for that, for her 5 years of service. And then we want to thank Helen LaFave, City of Plymouth. Helen is here, 20 years, but don't let that number fool you. Actually, Helen has technically been around for over 30 years, because we recognized her a year or two ago for her 30-year commitment to the board of directors. And so she's been around a while. I think she's heading for the prestigious 35-year club, is the rumors I'm hearing out there. And we want to definitely thank Helen. She's engaged with what's happening on both sides, on the commission and the board, and she has a full knowledge, especially on the video side of things too, being a communications manager at the City of Plymouth, and knows exactly what's happening in terms of how we do video here, and is very supportive and has been very supportive of the entire organization and how we do things here. So on behalf of the staff, we want to thank you, and on behalf of the board, I'll give this to the chairman. We have a nice plaque here for your 20 years of service, so if you'd like to come up, we can give that to you right now, and let's give Helen a round of applause.
20 years of dedicated service to her community, so thank you for giving your life to us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anything else to come before the commission?
No, other than I mentioned that we'll look at future appointments and getting the word out and starting to recruit some board members for some of the empty vacant positions. And that pretty much concludes, oh, and not to forget that after our next meeting, we will have a little breakfast. Normally you see like an array of donuts and bagels out front, which are not there this morning, so hopefully nobody was too upset. But we do have something to recognize. Some of the staff will be recognizing later, as well as Helen, and we typically just have a little light breakfast, so hopefully you can stick around for that.
Okay, ask for a motion to adjourn the commission.
Second?
Motion's been made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Okay, that sets us up for the Board of Directors meeting. First thing on our agenda is the consent items, the minutes, and the treasurer's report. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that be accepted as printed.
Okay, we got moved and seconded for the consent items. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Action item, we have the recommendation on the budget.
Yes, Madam Chair, similar to the Cable Commission meeting, we are just seeking final approval of the NWCT and NWCT budgets, and this especially on the NWCT side, because the commission approves both. So we're just looking for the board members to accept this budget so we can move on into 2020.
Okay, any questions? Is there a motion to accept the budget?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Now we have the review of the CCX media rules and procedures.
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have the final review of the proposed CCX media rules attached, and we included the red line version. These rules have been reviewed by our attorney, Mike Bradley, has been reviewed several times by the Policies and Activities Committee. And at both those, at the final meetings, there were just a few minor changes. And so we are seeking final approval of these rules from the full board following any discussion that there may be.
Any questions, any discussion? Is there a motion to approve the final CCX media rules and procedures?
I'll make that motion.
Got a move, two moves, is a move and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the proposed severe weather conditions policy.
Madam Chair, attached to this memo is our proposed severe weather conditions policy. We currently do not have a severe weather conditions policy. We may have like several handbooks ago, and then we did an electronic update, and there really wasn't one in there. So then we did some research. We went to look at all the severe weather policies that all the cities had, and so we reviewed those policies of our member cities, and then so this proposed policy was discussed amongst the group at their November 6th meeting. A few minor changes were made, and the committee voted unanimously in favor of the severe weather conditions policy. And we knew we needed one when we had the polar vortex last year, because it was, we just really, we got through it, but it would have been good to have something more in writing in terms of how we want to handle situations like that. So we're seeking your approval on this today.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Is there a motion to approve the severe weather conditions policy?
Move.
Okay, got motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that carries. Then we have the proposed leave donation policy.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Attached to this memo is our leave donation policy. And again, this is a policy we do not have, but most cities do. Staff reviewed the policies of the member cities, and our proposed policy is reflective of what our member cities have within their employee handbooks. The proposed policy was discussed at the Policies and Activities Committee meeting on November 6th. Again, here, there was just a few minor tweaks to the language, and the committee voted unanimously in favor of the leave donation policy, and we are seeking your approval today for this policy.
Okay,
So moved.
got a motion? Is there,
I'll second it.
second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Staff reports.
Yes, Madam Chair, I think we're going to move, we're going to make one minor change. We're going to move the staff recognition first. We
Okay.
weren't sure how long the meeting we're taking. We want to make sure we got the recognition in, so we're going to go right into that right now. I simply want to inform you that we have two staff people here, one of them being Wendy Brierly over here. Everybody knows Wendy, and then Barb Nolan Clark. We want to recognize their many years of outstanding service. Wendy is been a superstar here. She's been here now for 30 years officially, and she is basically a jack of all trades. She's there when I need her to get all these things done. She's the ultimate person in terms of administration assistance and helping to put together all these packets, helping to put together the budgets. She's involved in lead the payroll, accounting, and HR, all under one person here. So I know at the cities, which have larger staffs and more complicated situations, you may have individual people for all those different roles, and so Wendy handles all those things, and we are definitely thankful for all of her service and the amazing job and positive attitude that she has working here at CCX Media. So we want to recognize Wendy with a formal, we'll give this to the chair, and if you want to come up, Wendy. Want to recognize Wendy for her 30 years of service to the board. I think I said 30 years of service to the board. I meant to the CCX Media organization. So next, Barb Nolan Clark. She's back in the control room, and I'm hoping I could call her out here right now. If she's in, and actually she's running audio. So yeah, I think she heard me. Here she comes. Come on out, Barb. Well, Barb has been here. We're counting some of that cable company time in here too, because Barb is one of our first, in the first round of maybe the first 3 or 4 employees hired for the organization. And Barb has spent the last 35 years of her life committed to this organization. And Barb announced recently that she will be retiring at the end of December, so we are truly going to miss Barb. The last 35 years, Barb has had her fingerprints all over everything in terms of how this organization came to be. She was involved in helping design this studio. We weren't even in this building. This was just an open land, the property we're on now. She started out at the Plymouth studio, which I think, is that the one we called Ice Station Zebra at the time?
That was Maple Grove.
Maple Grove was Ice Station Zebra, because there was nothing in Maple Grove, and there wasn't too much around in Plymouth at that time. And they were still doing a lot of
There had
things.
no phone, I think, when I first went in.
Yep.
And there were deer and raccoons out in the field out there.
There
And I
were-
thought, wow, this is gonna be interesting.
She said, I got a good gig here. She came from the ground, she had a communications background from this, she went to St. Cloud State University, as did many of our staff people through their media television program. And I'll never forget the day that she went through the interview process here. or actually it was across the street, and she was hired by a full committee of the, I mean, this was a massive undertaking. It would be like being in a room like this, almost like the impeachment hearings, and Barb sitting there with lights on, and there was one person constantly taking pictures of her while she's being interviewed, and she got through it, though. She got through that process. We don't do that anymore, where it's like, okay, you're gonna be before 20 people, and we're gonna constantly be taking your photo. Anyway, she'll never forget that moment, and of course, we're never going to forget all the things that Barb has accomplished for this organization. She started here when we didn't even have a computer here. I mean, we had a typewriter. I think we were beyond the onion skin paper and mimeograph machines, but we did have a typewriter, and I think in some of our studios we still even had rotary phones because we were on a tight budget. Still are, but I think we've come up to the touch dial phones. Just don't show those rotary phones to any of the younger generation. They won't know what it is. But yeah, there was no computer. There was a rotary phone, and a camcorder was just that. It was a camera and a cord attached. The technology back then and all the different versions of media that Barb has seen, from tape to full digital, and just being involved with this. And I know the volunteers around the northwest suburbs are going to miss her dearly. We are. I mean, we recognized her a little bit at the volunteer gala. And I know she's been a positive light here in terms of this organization. And so will be greatly missed. So Barb, if you'd come up, we'd like to recognize you for your 35 years of service. We'll be taking some group photos at the end of the Northwest Community Television CCX Media meeting. So now I guess we can go on to
Staff reports.
the staff reports, and I just want to mention a few quick things. We are in the process of full mode into our strategic planning process that we've been going through for the last year. It's one thing to put together a strategic plan. That's actually the easy part. The hard part is implementing, and that's what we're at right now. We're implementing our strategic plan, and there's really 4 specific areas of that plan. One is to build the long-term financial stability, because as I just mentioned about the Comcast report in terms of those numbers, the cable subscribers going down, that really will affect our revenue and has been affecting our revenue. So we are all hands on deck in implementing things, and some of this change may be difficult. I mean, we're looking at everything in terms of adapting to the future, maybe some less funding. We have to look at some alternative staffing models, and we're digging deep into workforce planning. Dave is working with staff on that with several different meetings, so that's very critical at this time. We're looking at hours of operation for Create. So our goal, although traditional public access operations have been shuttered or shut down within the Twin Cities and all over the country, our goal is to keep our operation up and running. It may look a little different in terms of operations, but our goal is to have long-term sustainability in terms of Create operations for the general public. So that's what our goal is, and that's what we think we will definitely be able to achieve, rather than just not have it at all. So we'll definitely want your support on all of that. And then the other thing is we're going to be looking at expanding the CCX media brand recognition and provide media services to the community, and just continue to build and maintain a strong, well-managed organization. The other thing I wanted to point out is that we recently had a board election, and Mary LaHaye, who will take over for Sue Ellen Zagrabelli. Sue Ellen, thank you for your service. We'll be coming up with a plaque for you at the end of your term here at the end of the year. We want to thank you for your service on the board, Sue Ellen. And then Mary LaHaye will be taking over Sue Ellen's spot. So thank you very much for your work and volunteerism. And that's pretty much all I have. I'd like to turn it over to Dave Kaiser.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for an opportunity to give you a quick update A lot going on in the programming area. I have a few video clips for you, plus a few statistics to look at. So if we go to the screen, one of the fun parts of the fall sports season is we have a lot of very successful teams in the area. In fact, a couple state champions, one in girls soccer and another one in girls volleyball. And if you missed it when it was on the air or the replays, here's a quick look at the volleyball championship with Wayzata.
Welcome to XL Energy Center, home of the Class 3A state championship between Egan Wildcats and the Wayzata Trojans. Revere, the sophomore DS, serves at Pernsteiner, of course. High outside set, Ling Long gonna swing for it, goes cross court, Long handles it. High outside set, Long cross court, picked up. Roll shot, into the block, picked up, ooh, secondary handle. Long tips it down the line to Pernsteiner, and that'll do it. Wayzata has won the state title, 16-14 in set 5.
What a great 5-set championship match.
Obviously a thrill for the ladies involved in the volleyball and a thrill for our crew to be able to do some coverage at the XL Energy Center. And if you're football fans, let you know that we have two teams from our area that are in the state football championship for the Class 6A. It's Champlin Park and Wayzata. So if you're interested in watching that game, it'll be replayed here on CCX Media as well. Thought I'd show you a few statistics, and some great things have been happening. Steve Brockhouse does a great job with our staff in looking at some of the stats and helping us be in the places we need to be. Draw your attention, this is the total views over all platforms, and I believe you have this information in your packet as well. But if you look at some of the bottom numbers that I have highlighted, obviously things have gone very well in the month of September and October. The numbers continue to rise, and part of that success is due to what you just saw, volleyball. There is a immense appetite for ladies volleyball throughout the country, and so we are finding through YouTube that volleyball is doing quite a good job. You see other statistics as well. Our Facebook page continues to grow, and also our partnership with the cities on their Facebook pages as well continues to grow, where we send them links and they're getting views through some of those links. Draw your attention to the next page. What this turns into then is, as that volleyball is watched throughout the country on our YouTube channel, we have now placed ads on those YouTube links. And so you're seeing what happened over the last couple months as the views continue to grow. The income that we're getting from that volleyball on YouTube continues to grow. We place spots before and after the match. We can place spots within the matches as well. So again, we're getting some great exposure of those on a national basis, and you see what we're looking at as far as the total for the year. So a nice funnel of income that is coming into us through something that we've been doing for a long time. But what we did is we split our YouTube channels. We now have two YouTube channels. One features full game sports. That's the one that's bringing a lot of this income. So we figured the audience is out there and they're subscribing to this channel if it's all sports. And so we said, let's give them what they want. So that's an all sports channel. Then our secondary YouTube channel is the home, basically the video home for our news clips, sports report clips, and also the connection clips. And those are what you see when you go to our website. They are YouTube clips, but you just don't know they are because they're embedded within our site. So again, some great work being done by our sports staff and our social media staff to continue that rise. Last page that we'll look at here as far as statistics is our website, and these are our website users over the past month. So you see the month of October, we are at 88,000. If you look back towards the beginning of the year, we are averaging in the 19, 20, 30,000s, but that has steadily continued to grow. And that again is people looking at the video clips, either they're news clips, connection clips, create clips, as well as the sports clips. 434,000 right now. Steve is very confident, obviously, that we'll break the 500,000 mark. This is, again, strictly for CCX Media's website and people visiting our pages on our website. So we're very happy with the work that's being done there and continued success going on. And this will help us in the future as we begin to sell spots and placements, banners on our website. If we have this type of traffic, it is much easier to go to businesses and say, this is what you're going to get. These are the eyeballs you'll get for people that are looking at this local content. So thanks to the board and commissioner for allowing us to do that and continue to see that growth. Quick clip I want to show from the city of Osseo. We had a new theory of a spot we would put together, something we saw in other awards competitions throughout the country that was a city in a minute. And we thought, all right, let's rename it a little bit and do the same thing. So we call it Osseo at a Glance. So this is a 1-minute piece that features some of the things you might see if you visit the city of Osseo. Let's take a look. Hats off to Chris O'Connor and Beth Anderson from our connection staff that worked on that piece. That's the last 30 seconds, so you missed the first 30. So if you want to watch, go to our website and you can take a look at that. And it's something that we're hoping to work on with the other cities as well. Again, we went out and shot businesses, organizations within the city, and then looked back at our years of cover footage of parades and other events in the city just to give people a 1-minute snapshot of what are the great things in the city I live in, or maybe that city next door that I might want to visit. Last note I have is about outside services and some of the things we've been doing. So with our sports, we've been working with Chick-fil-A and a sponsorship with our Play of the Week. That has been very successful. So we thanks Chick-fil-A out of Maple Grove for helping us with that. We also have been talking with Hy-Vee of Maple Grove, and they have some interest in sponsoring some things in the future once they get past their grand opening. So we will be working further with them. One other note I'll make is for this brochure right here, this is a look at something from the city of New Hope. We got a call from Kirk and the city of New Hope saying, we're in a little bit of a bind for putting together our recreation brochure. Do you have some staff that might be able to help us with some creative development background or design background? And we said, Kirk, we think we can help you out. So we work with Rich at the city, and we worked for about a 2-3 week period of time to help them design and put together this brochure for their winter season. And so thanks to Kirk for thinking of us, and it was a great opportunity. We do have staff that has creative suite experience and works with that on a regular basis for our staff. So it's something that if cities have a need in that area, that's another thing that we can on a for-hire basis help cities out with and other organizations. So again, thanks to Kirk, and great job by Tamisha Torre of our staff that was the lead on putting that together. Shannon is going to come out now. I'll toss it over to her. You see Sonia up here on the screen. She's going to talk a little bit about some of the specials we have coming up. Shannon?
Good morning, everybody. And we chose today to end on a lighter note. We've been really diving in and doing these investigative reports on really important topics in our community, domestic violence initiatives among veterans and the role that they have played and how they are finally getting a little bit of recognition. We've looked deeper into some of our city festivals and the future of those and how they're growing and changing. But all of that is really heavy, weighty stuff. So instead, we chose to show you a clip of what we're working on for Christmas, which is a little lighter. We have gone to Lynn Bush Roses in Plymouth and tried to show every part of what they do to build toward the poinsettia season, which is a big deal for them. And they start on this in the middle of the summer. And so this is just a small clip of what you'll see if you watch on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. If you've got other things going on, never fear. It'll be on our website as well. So here's just a small clip of that story.
Only July, but a Plymouth business is already thinking about Christmas. Delane Cleveland shows us what the company is doing to make sure folks can get their hands on a traditional holiday plant.
In a nondescript greenhouse near the western edge of Plymouth,
I like that I'm on my feet. It's something different every day.
you'll find Nicole Michelson hard at work.
I like that I'm always moving. I'm not someone who could just sit at a desk all day.
She and several other employees at Lynn Bush Roses have an important job.
So they have these pots that go around, and they have plugs, and you put them in the middle of the pot.
These plants may not look like much now, but in roughly 5 months, they'll bring the Christmas spirit to thousands of homes and businesses.
Today you got to see us planting our 2019 poinsettia crop.
So that's just a small picture of what it looked like back in July, and we're going to do the final installment on that this week. So please tune in. And a final note, of course, we're always looking for story ideas. So if you have anything going on in your community, please let us know. We're always looking for good stuff. Yes, sir.
I want to, Shannon doesn't know I'm going to do this, but Shannon was recognized for she has an Emmy nomination here for a writing nomination. She's an excellent writer, and it's for the Hollingsworth Park video, the park in Robbinsdale. She received an Emmy nomination for, so thank you for that, Shannon, and congratulations. And a second nomination as a producer-reporter for a program on exploring local government aid. Nobody can explain local government aid better than Shannon. She did a great job, and the Emmy board gave her a nomination for the excellent job you did on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We're very excited. Very excited to be nominated. We're against some really big television stations, so being kind of the small dog in the fight there. And I believe a station out of Iowa won the writing, and the Des Moines Register won the other one. So when you see who you're against and you know you're at the same table and your work is being held up as like the top 4 out of 40, that is just a really big pat on the back. So thank you for letting us enter those contests and put our work out there. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Shannon, I just want to congratulate you also on, you're doing a great job as our news director.
Thank you very much.
Fabulous job.
Thank you very much. All right.
I think we have
Next.
Barb, I believe, will be doing a quick report, and that will then conclude the staff reports. And Barb's coming out right now for her final report of all reports.
I know, I had to take advantage of doing one last report. So go ahead and you guys can forward to the first slide. The staff has been obviously busy with what we do every day, but we've also had a focus on local nonprofits. So I just wanted to give you a couple of visuals on some of the things we're doing. We're working with SEEP. They have a great program going called the Chef Cook-Off, where it's kind of like Guy's Grocery Games if you watch the Food Network, where they actually go shopping in their food pantry and create things. And so Dustin and I think 2 of our volunteers were on hand to help them with an effort that they were putting together for just raising funds. And I think I'm trying to remember, I've lost the name of the Give to the Max Day. That's what I'm thinking. This was a part of their Give to the Max initiative on Facebook. Also, if you go to the next slide, we're also working with the West Metro Water Alliance out of Plymouth, and they have a really great initiative to teach kids in the 4th grade all about water quality and watersheds in our area. So we're working with them to create just kind of some promotional pieces to get out to local schools to let them know that they have this available for them. And I think they are thinking of maybe sending that out kind of outstate as well. Okay, next slide, please. Also, Nikki Jacket Johnson on our staff has been kind of trying a little, I'm going to call it a pilot program of a program called My Impact, and it features local nonprofits. And this one, if you guys go ahead and roll it, this is one that she put together for the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center.
We are an emergency hospital for injured wild animals. It's a very complex organization because from the outside, you find a baby animal, you call us, we tell you, yeah, it should come in, so you make the trip over here with the animal. Our admit staff is trained to help you with that. That animal then goes back into the treatment room. We have 5 full-time veterinarians on staff, so that means that every single animal, even if it's a baby mouse, will be examined by a vet, and then who's also skilled in wildlife medicine. Then that animal, if it survives that vet exam, then it goes back into one of our wards. And in those wards, we have volunteer crews who come in and clean the cages for the animals, do basic husbandry. And then the animal can be with us, from a couple of days to 6 months. That's kind of what the average day looks like. We don't have a typical customer, and then we also don't know what we're going to see. We know we're going to see robins and bunnies and squirrels, but last year we admitted 200 different species of animals. And sometimes we'll get something in that we haven't seen in 15 years.
It was interesting, and this one too was also, we had completed the project and we're kind of waiting for them to share this out on Facebook. And they also use that as, this was kind of their video to push Give to the Max Day. So that's a good reflection on us. So hats off to Nikki Jackett on this. She's also worked on, she's got a couple of other nonprofits under her belt as well. So we'll see how this progresses in the future. Also, I'm going to give credit to Nikki again. We're rolling out the Sling Studio. The Sling Studio is kind of it's neat technology. It's a wireless multi-camera production unit. And what you can do is you can hook up any kind of camera, an iPad, an iPhone, or any kind of phone, DSLR cameras, and you can go out with an iPad and actually do a multi-camera shoot. Dave Kaiser's used it. If we go to the next slide, I've got a couple of examples. We kicked it off with a concert in our backyard just to get our volunteers used to using it, and Dave's used it out in the field with the Golden Valley League of Women Voters, and I think he's got a production today, or no, tomorrow. It's a really great little product, and I think we'll see it being used by both our volunteers and our staff as well. Next slide, please. And then I'll just finish up with something fun. I do it every year. Every year in November, we have our volunteer member gala. And, we were tired of, every time we offer this in November, it's cold, so we went with a luau theme. So this is just a little highlight video from our gala. We're local content producers, and it's really, really important to our communities. And so this night is to celebrate all of the things that you do, and you guys do it really well. It was just a fun night. So, and then in leaving, I just want to say thank you guys for the opportunity. It's because, people always ask me, they'll say, what are you guys doing differently in this organization? You're so successful. And it comes right out of my mouth. I said, first of all, we were set up for success from the beginning. We have a really supportive board and commission and a great staff. And that's why we are so good. And I feel really blessed to have been able to work here. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you could see by just all the difference and changes there. Barb just showed you this technology. It's all wireless. And when she began, everything was wired together. We didn't have any internet. We didn't have a social media coordinator. We didn't even know what social media meant back in 1984. And she has seen it all the way through. And so, like I said earlier, we're definitely going to miss her. And thanks again, Barb, for your service to Northwest Community Television and CCX Media.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
I just want to point out that our next meeting in February is going to be on the second Thursday instead of the third, so that was a change.
Yep.
So make sure you note that on your calendars. We're going to meet February 13th.
And we'll send out a reminder on that too, so thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question about the staff report?
Sure.
Or the director's report. What are the rules when you're thinking about strategically getting more revenue for the organization? Are there any efforts out there to try to tap into the internet funds, the internet revenue that Comcast generates?
There's a law, and Mike could expand on this too. If we had, there was a short period of time, and I do mean short, maybe a year or two, where we actually did get internet revenue. If we got internet revenue today, we wouldn't be talking, we would never have to worry about any financial situations. But the it was federal legislation, Mike, that came up with said local franchise authorities cannot collect internet revenue in order to fund the local franchise authority in general. So there probably hasn't been many changes on that.
Well, actually, the third report and order that we're appealing did address that. And just to remind everybody, the FCC addressed two issues. One, how do you define franchise fees? And and the FCC interpreted the word franchise fee differently than it's ever been interpreted in the last 35 years. But then secondly, they also preempted local government from regulating any part of the cable services that are, or the non-cable services that are provided over a cable system. So it's a very significant order, and that's why we're in that appeal right now, because we don't think the FCC had that authority to do that.
So, and then, but in general, the organization, through our strategic planning process, is looking at all kinds of other ways, through whether it's through grants, putting the, we have donation systems, selling advertising, sponsorships, for hire services that Dave was talking about. We're already dabbling in a lot of things, and even offering services similar to Logis, where we could maybe provide more services to cities where if Kirk McDonald's communications person is on vacation and they still need something done, we can then fill in versus you trying to figure out, okay, now how are we gonna do that? So we're really excited about the future, but none of it will be easy, but certainly it would be extremely easy if we ended up getting internet revenue, but nobody's holding their breath that'll even happen, because the FCC, the way the current FCC is they don't favor any of this. So, but we're gonna keep putting up the good fight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Move second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.